They're-
Sit down for just a minute and get a picture.
Sorry.
That's right.
Okay, next.
So,
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tanner Chogstad, and this is for a project that I've done. So an average teenager's day starts off at generally around 6 to 7 a.m. and they'll wake up, either get ready or wake up a bit earlier and get ready and go to a class before school. And because of the early schedule from 6 to 7, a lot of them don't have the recommended amount of sleep because they'll be going to bed at 11 or 12, and a lot of parents complain that that's just because it's just the way they are. They tell them to go to bed earlier, but they just don't. And they don't go to bed earlier because they can't. And I'll explain why in a little bit. So because of that disconnection from having to wake up early and going to bed late, they all have not the recommended amount of sleep, which can have a negative impact on their studies overall. So this will happen every single day, and the cycle kind of repeats and repeats and builds upon itself. And so I propose that we start school later in the day to give kids more time to sleep at night, to get the recommended amount of sleep, which can potentially raise their study level and raise test scores and things like that. So yeah. So starting high school later would be beneficial for the overall health of the student body and could potentially cause students to retain information better because of their increased brain processing speed, which would come with more sleep. Today I will cover the problem of why students can't go to bed early, the solution that I've proposed, and some examples of how it's already been used effectively. So the problem starts when students begin puberty. Timothy Martin and Reddy Samathi, both journalists for the Wall Street Journal, have written articles on how puberty in students can affect them negatively in the way that they start their melatonin, which is sort of like what makes you sleepy. The melatonin levels in students move farther into the night, so they don't begin to feel sleepy until, say, around like 11 or 12 instead of 9 to 10 when a lot of them are told to go to bed. So this would be an example of a normal person's schedule. So it would start around 3 or 4 and they'd get tighter and tighter throughout the day and peak at 9 or 10 or 8. For students in puberty, it would shift farther this way, so they'd be at the peak at around 11 or 10 instead of at 8 or 9 or 10. So that's a major problem because they can't physically go to bed earlier because they don't feel the need to, their body doesn't feel the need to. Another problem would be sleep pressure, which is kind of the way sleep weighs down on you throughout the day, how energy gets less and less throughout the day goes on. Students don't feel as tired as they should, so again, they don't feel the need to sleep when they actually do. So I proposed the solution that school starts later in the day. The easiest way to implement this would just be to move school schedules to start instead of at 8 or even 7:30 in some areas to 8:30 or 9. And a lot of people think that this would make it so students have less instruction time, but it would be okay to tack those early hours onto the end of the day because you'd still be getting more sleep in the long run. So yeah, and moving 0-hour classes, so classes before the first bell actually begins, those could be moved into the middle of the day. So because those are extremely troublesome when dealing with this. So yeah. Finally, we can see how this solution has already worked in modern society. At a school in Pennsylvania called St. George School, the first semester they did school how they normally would, starting at 8 o'clock. And the second semester they started at 8:30, and they polled their students both times to see how they felt and how their studies were going. And it turns out the second semester, their emotional health was a lot higher than it was in the previous semester. Yeah, so, yeah. When they started classes later in the day, the students' emotional health rose drastically, as well as their performance on exams given to them. After trial period of the second semester, they decided to keep it the way it was the second semester, so starting at 8:30, and they kept it for later school years. So the idea is to be able to move school hours later in the day because students are physically unable to fall asleep earlier in the day. So solutions can easily be implemented, and as you can see, they already have. But the only way for it to get done is to have maybe the Board of Education or principals of schools know about it. But the only way to do this is to have other people inform them. So I propose to you that for grandchildren or children or yourselves for your school, you can go to the board and petition and just give them the knowledge that they may not already have, because giving them something to think about is a lot better than them not knowing about the problem. Thank you for your time.
You have to
Oh,
ask.
questions.
Period. So does anyone have any questions? Yes?
What is the recommended amount of sleep for a
Recommended
teenager?
amount of sleep is 8 to 10, but once you go past 10, it's sort of an excess, and too much of a good thing is still a little bad. So 8 to 10 is perfect amount. Getting a little less isn't very good, and getting too much is not very good as well. Any other questions?
This is a point in support of your argument, but, and I'll phrase it the former question, do you not also think that the demographics of society today, in which you have two working parents, would lend itself better to a school that started at 9 and ended at 5 than a school that started at 7 and ended at 3?
Yep, that would be beneficial towards the family as a whole, yes. Okay.
You made me stay here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.